There are a lot fewer two-parent families.
What's worth more, a dollar today or a dollar tomorrow?
Almost nobody gets out of love alive.
Prisoners' rights is out of sight, out of mind.
Is your brain on God?
You ain't ready to
There
oppose
are discussions
how
as
they
a
thought
black family we have to have them.
What's worth more, a dollar today or a dollar tomorrow? What's worth more, a dollar today or a dollar tomorrow?
Reality Gurus, the show we take a conversational approach to issues through complex conversation. I'm your host, G. Cleve. If you haven't already done so, man, check out that Reality Gurus YouTube channel and go ahead and get some of this good content. But today, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into the overall, development of the black person, the African American, the descendant of slave in the United States. Probably get into a couple of topics about, just overall wealth, education, overall health, and got a couple cats here. You know who they are. I'm gonna go ahead and discuss it, man. Anye, Andy, BB, what's up, fellas? Good morning, Reality Gurus. How you doing?
Salutations, salutations.
All right. Well, I mean, in previous shows, I know I've kind of played devil's advocate, and I've asked questions like, if I wasn't from this struggle, and someone asked me a question about, is life better for black people today than it was, say, 100 years ago? And if I wasn't from the struggle, the obvious answer would be just yeah. 100 years ago, black people in this country, and they had no rights, right? Post-slavery and Jim Crow and all that other stuff, right? So, what do you guys think, man? If someone from this struggle responded by saying, "Of course, you guys are doing better now," what would your response say? What do you guys think about that?
Hell no, we're not doing better. We're more confused now than ever before. I mean, we can look at one of the positives of this generation, so much information that's so widespread. The unity that we should have because everybody's going in their own different direction nowadays. We can't. It's that much harder for us to get on the same page.
Andy, what you think, man?
I would say yes, it's better. I feel like now is just shifted to us being kind of like sharecroppers or like indentured servants rather than us being like slaves. When it comes to like the mentality, I would say that's where I could kind of say shit haven't really shifted that much because we are human beings and we're prone to like fears and being scared to be thrown into the wild and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like we got better. I feel like we have more agency nowadays. Like it would be fucking to me an egregious statement to say, "Oh yeah, it hasn't gotten better." To me, it is.
Right. Well, yeah. So unfair a little bit. DB. So what you think about it though? What would be your take on that? Do you think we are doing better overall as people in this country, or not? How you feel about it?
I feel like those it's a matter of experience. I think experience wise we are. Like you said, we're not in the age of Jim Crow, we're not necessarily in the age of slavery either, and we have more autonomy. We could do a lot more. It's just a matter of getting there. So overall in that aspect, yes. When you break it down to certain specific things, not so much. We haven't had much change within a few decades at all.
Okay, well then let's go ahead and talk about something specific then. I know as far as wealth is concerned, for blacks in this country, there's been two arguments that I've heard. I've heard that descendants of slaves are, we have what, like trillions of dollars. If we pool all our resources together and stuff, we have like, spending power of like what the ninth, but like number nine as far as countries is concerned. If we were considered our own little country, the kind of wealth we bring, and then there's also, of course, what we've heard recent that medium household wealth is going to be at zero. Net wealth will be at zero for blacks. So there's the difference there. So like, how do you feel about us as far as wealth, finances, and stuff is concerned, as it relates to what it was was, say, 100 years ago. How y'all feel about that?
Well, that kind of goes back to my original point. It doesn't matter the type of spending power you have if we're not on the same page mentally. If we don't understand group economics, if we don't understand that we need to pull our finances together to become that superpower. If that money continues to go outside of our community, so again, that ideology and us being on so many different pages, us being so free to be on so many different pages, but not understanding what's the best ideology for us as a group. You can be an individual, but we must come together as a group, specifically on issues like economics.
Now, who do you blame for that, though? Who's responsible? So, if we relate to the past, how policy and stuff shaped our existence here in this country, um, then you fast forward to where maybe the framing is not as clear. Well, what's the problem? Then what would you say is the reason why we're not doing more, financially? Why are we not in a better space as far as wealth is concerned if we're not having the restrictions we were having, back then?
Well, a lot of people, a lot of your smart minds
Mm,
take it back to integration. When we had the black businesses and we were forced to support our own and deal with our own, then we got that opportunity to spin with theirs. We were tricked. It's a chess game. It was a chess move. And what they say, the ice is colder over here. You know what I'm saying? So we started spinning over there, and we left a lot of our businesses alone, and we haven't got back to that since.
mm. So post integration, then let me just say that then. Um,
Yeah.
how do y'all feel about the whole integration, idea? The fact that that was the decision that was made by people, 60s, and how do you feel? Things have fared. How have we fared under that situation? Andy, DB, one of you fellas, how y'all feel about that?
I feel like integration kind of put us in the place where I feel like we're like a deer in headlights rather than seeing our enemy. Not to necessarily say it's an enemy. I don't really want to completely vilify and demonize like white society or whatever. But I mean, personally, I feel like it's kind of now you kind of shifted the issue. Rather than cleaning one room, you like, we even finished cleaning this room and we decided to go to another room. I'm like, nah, we got to fix our room first before we want to kind of really, really have integration where there's really like a humanity aspect with it, where I could go to a white business, I could go to a black business, where it is like an equality or like an understanding on both sides rather than doing certain like a racial kind of thing. I feel like it kind of fucked that up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If
gotcha.
that makes sense.
I kind of feel we never truly integrated in a lot of things. I mean, schools are still segregated a lot. You can think about redlining and everything else that we never really truly integrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, and I'm just taking from my interpretation, I think a lot of people misinterpreted what integration was about because we did have the businesses. I'll agree with that, but you also had less choice in policy and the people that you could pick. So basically, you still had a lot of lynching. You still had a lot of stuff with your own survival.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like, I mean, we bring up Tulsa a lot. A lot of that shows that basically you could build your own wealth, but you're still subjugated to these people above you that could take it away from you if they decided to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So a lot of that is trying to get some of that policy. And I think to Andy's point, a lot of that also is misinterpretation. Like I think about the story y'all heard about Brown versus the Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the story behind it originally between Brown was not necessarily they wanted to go to a school because it was a better school, because they actually preferred the black school. It was just that black school was 7 miles away. This other school was 1 mile away. So it was like, why do we gotta go 7 miles if this is other school? So let us be able to go to this other school,
Right.
which that's what they want. But what ended up happening is the narrative changed, and now it became, oh yeah, we're gonna let them integrate because their school is worse. So what ended up happening is that they started getting rid of those black schools, those black teachers, and started getting rid of our resources
Mm-hmm.
instead of actually making it better. So a lot of that comes with integration. So in some ways, integration is bad. I just feel like we never truly built off of it like we were supposed to.
Gotcha. So, all right. So then the question, let me go ahead and spin it around to you, Aiden. So if DB's correct that we never been able to fully realize what integration was supposed to bring, then what have we benefited from? it comes to integration? What benefits have we seen that you could say?
I truly don't know. Y'all got to tell me that because I'm not for integration at all. I'm a separatist
Okay,
altogether.
all right.
Just to go back to his point.
So
To go back to his. Okay.
no, I was gonna say so. Is your stance that we were in a better situation when this country was segregated? Is that what you're saying?
We were in a better situation definitely when this country was segregated. Of course, we're gonna go through it. We're gonna deal with it. We got to understand that we didn't have the resources that they have. But going back to my point again, mentality. We got to understand with this struggle that it's gonna be a long haul. It's gonna be sacrifice. It's gonna be hard. You're not gonna have everything nice and dandy from day one. We got to build up and support these Black businesses. We got to build up and support these Black schools. So sometimes for these Black schools, we might have to walk 7 miles for it. But let's walk those 7 miles and let's figure out the things that we need to do to make the Black school better. Let's figure out how we're going to get buses coming out to our communities to get to these Black schools. Let's figure out how we're going to get competent Black teachers in these Black schools.
I mean, I think that's part of the point I was saying with integration is the fact that if you're not able to control like the busing system, you're not able to control all of that. You're making a lot of extra sacrifices. I'm saying it was also really a matter of survival. So to me, it's integration's power, and a lot of this is not necessarily stuff that we have done, but I see the possibility for is being able to do things more politically. And I agree that a lot of us messed up with the fact that as soon as we got certain forms of integration, we kind of expanded, but not for nothing. That's kind of like the nature of people. You move to where you have more opportunity, which makes me think that we didn't have unity in the first place. We were just so stuck together. That we had to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that speaks to a lot about the mentality. Like I think the mentality has always kind of been fractured. And I say that even now, recently reading a book that talked about how back in the day when they started separating different ethnicities, they did it, of course, you had the European all the way down to the African being the bottom rung. But they also did it within those different ethnicities. So basically, Europeans had their own hierarchy, and Africans had their own hierarchy. And some were based on basically how European you were, put you higher up there. So the ones that were more tribal, they were lower on the rung. So basically, now when you bring them into Europe, you bring them into America, and they have this grade that they go by. That basically the ones that are more European were treated better than the ones that were less, that was under. So now you're already kind of creating a separation. So now you see this person like, oh, why are they getting treated better than me? And we, think about like in America, the difference between the house nigga and the field nigga is like, oh, why is that person being treated better than me? Well, you already have that mind of separation. And I think that's always been there within America. So I think that's a deeper question that's bigger than integration at all.
So is it
okay. Just one little thing I was going to add.
Hey, listen, go ahead. Yeah, spit that out there. Go ahead.
Just one thing I was going to add is, we've always had our differences. We've always had our subgroups. But there's a big difference between maybe, I don't know for sure, I wasn't there in that time frame, us having like 3 or 4 different subgroups of ideologies to today, us having hundreds of different ideologies that separate us, that make it that much harder for us to unify for one goal.
Yeah, I don't really know if it's about the ideology at that point. I think it's a matter of the situation that you put in. So I think if we had that freedom from before, that it would be the same thing. You know what I mean? Like if you already created by separation, if you already have dislike minds, and for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter the ideology. The ideology wasn't there from the beginning. Your only desire is to be free. Your only desire is to not walk out your own neighborhood and be lynched. It has nothing else to do with the person around me. It's about survival. So,
I definitely agree with that. But we're living in a day and time now to where people are putting their personal ideology that they latch on to tight above freedom, above the Black cause. Because, hey, I'm not saying not me, but I'm saying a person that stands in these shoes like, hey, I'm gay. That's what matters most to me. Yeah, I am Black, but I'm gay. I got friends that say,
I
"Hey,
don't know
I'm
if
a, I'm a,
that's.
I'm a, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian first before anything else." So it's my religion and my relationship with God that stands before my blackness. It's women out here that are saying, "Hey, I'm a feminist first," because people don't understand what it is to be in a woman's shoes. So that is my fight first before my blackness.
So
But
okay,
wouldn't you? What?
let me ask this
Wouldn't
Go
you?
question.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead. I'm gonna stop.
So
No,
before,
I was gonna say, wouldn't you wanna create a foundation through ideology quicker than skin color?
who's that
Ah, that's a
directed to? Who
good
you asking?
question. That's a
Okay,
good
that's.
question. But we can't connect that to our skin color though.
You
Eh,
can. You can, but I think what he's saying that sometimes you gotta think bigger outside of yourself. Like
No,
one to give an example, there's this activist, Grace Lee Boggs. She passed away a few years ago, at an old age, but she's Chinese American, but she's been through a variety of different movements. So starting from like the socialist movement to the communist movement to the labor movement to the Black Power movement. And at the end of the day, she locked into uh, the environment. So she became an environmentalist. And this, she said she liked it more than anything else because all of those, she saw that it was, you can only go so far. Like once you hit a certain area, the ideology gets stuck. With the environment, you could go anywhere. You could talk about the climate control. You could talk about your own neighborhood. Like you were able to bring more people in. So I think what Andy's trying to say, like if you could kind of link certain ideologies together to make it bigger than just one ideology, you get more people within to fight certain causes.
Okay, well, let me add to that just to say this. Okay, let me use the example of black people. Okay, and maybe this is just my perspective. I feel like we are the greatest humanists ever. We never get labeled that way, but I feel that we are. But I feel that the problem becomes we don't care about the black politics that we have to deal with in our survival. We look out and we love everyone else but ourselves, but others don't look out for and don't love us. So it brings some type of confusion within our own survival that we're looking at the bigger picture, but we don't look at who's catching hell the most, which is us, and others are not looking at who's catching hell the most, which is us. If that makes any sense.
I mean, I would agree. I would agree, but then that goes back to the mentality. I think there's a lot more there. We could dig into the mentality that is bigger than just the ideology, which is bigger than a lot of stuff we're talking about.
Okay, let me just something that you said about the question I was going to ask is then is it unrealistic for us to believe that we could ever unify as people if based on what you were saying we might not have had that history of it was more about survival. The decision, let's just say, if the situation wasn't as dire, if survival wasn't on the line, might there have been might there not have been as many, let's say, boycotts or protests, let's say, as far as the amount of people is concerned. Wondering, is it unrealistic to believe that we can unify if we didn't have that real history?
I mean, it was difficult. It was a difficult process for white people supposedly to unify. Even though to me, I don't really think they unified. I still feel like it's kind of like a boogeyman that's kind of
Yeah,
perpetuating black society. But I feel like it's difficult for anybody to unify. I feel like people put undue stress on black people to completely unify, but they had wars with the Civil War was America trying to be unified. Even when the United States, kind of seceded and left fucking Europe, wasn't fucking with Europe. That's white people trying to unify. And to me, in this sense, it's like, have white people really unified themselves? Like, just because it's a witch hunt and okay, we happen to all don't like people of color, whatever, this and that, supposedly. Who says they're unified? And who's to say that globalization itself is not affecting them? I just feel like with them, there's kind of like a obliviousness of the evaporation or the destruction of their culture.
I would say I think the
We're not,
unification. I feel like the unification is less important than having control, pretty much. Like to Andy's point, the majority of white people here wasn't always unified. They still haven't, but the unification was mainly just to be racist, mainly to say that you're better than black people. But a lot of them was having a lot of the white people still had the power structure in their hand. You know what I mean? We don't have that. I think that is more important than having the unification, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So let's get into some more stuff. Anye, so if you feel like post-integration, we are, so much worse than, prior, give me some of the things that have happened since, integration that, you want to touch on that, has kind of contributed to our negative, experience here in the United States. What
Okay.
other stuff? What stuff has happened, since integration that you think, is made our existence worse here?
Like we touched on a little bit earlier, schools is important. It just doesn't benefit us to be going to their schools, to be allowing their curriculum that they put together to be teaching our children. And again, that dates back to integration. Us going over there for the better schools, but we gotta really question what's best. The quality of our school or the curriculum that we're getting from the school, because again, we can always improve, the circumstances around the school, but what is the value that our children are getting from these schools?
Mm-hmm.
That's an example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the whole mentality, our mentality. I kind of wonder, because going back to the whole unification thing, if it's not an idea of so-called unification, what is it that Black people need to do if we're not unifying? What is it that we need to do so that we can actually live better here in this country? If that's the case, if we're not better off now, what is it that we need to do to live better? If it's not about unifying, I guess just jumping off that springboard off that argument you made, DP. What would we do if it wasn't?
We're overlooking the education part because my mind was on education, so now we're just talking back overall.
Well, no, I mean, if education is part of it, we can go ahead and go on to that. I just want, if there's multiple answers, from you guys, that's fine. But talk to me about the educational part then, if that's what you feel.
Well, no, I mean, I actually feel. I feel Ane's point overall. Like, I think as far as education, like, we need to create better schools for ourselves, or we need to find more control of the schools that we're actually in. Even just the main fact that we're under-resourced, so we don't have good enough education anyway. But that kind of goes to the point again about, if it's not about the unification, to me, it's about mainly grabbing the control of resources. Like, if I was to give a good example, and this might be a negative example, but I don't. Jay, you might remember that a while back we was going to do a show about Lakewood, New Jersey, about the fact of the Jewish people that was taking advantage of the Social Security system.
Correct.
At that time, so I researched that a little bit and to find out that it was more than just them using social services. It was more than just taking welfare and all that. That basically there also was a lot of housing discrimination, and there was also a lot of discrimination in the schools where they were keeping a lot of people out of that weren't Jewish. So these Jewish people were taking control of the neighborhood. And in some ways, that's how I'm thinking. Like, basically, if we control our own neighborhoods, if we are able to control the resources that we have, we can empower ourselves. We could do it for our communities.
And that's what I mean, though. So if unifying isn't the beginning of trying to, gain this control, then what is?
But unify. Okay, well, let me correct something, because I'm not going to say unification is not part of it. I think when we talk about unification as Black people, we think every community everywhere is supposed to latch onto it, and eventually that probably should be the case. But when I and I think this goes back to the Black leadership. When I say certain things, I think you need a direction. I'll actually go with Anye, because Anye is a big person about leadership, and I agree with him to a certain point that you need a direction. You need something to pinpoint on. You need something to say, okay, I can fight for this, to actually create people. So you do have to have some kind of unification. I'm saying the numbers don't have to be as great as we think they should be to start it off anyway, to be a kicking point. Like, basically, you have to start with these small points to get to a bigger one. That's what I'm pretty much trying to say.
Yeah, what you think, man?
And if we're talking about specific things, I mean, just the major points. Politically, starting with your own community. Economically, you know, Jay, you're a big person about entrepreneurship. I believe that's something that we need. Investing, like we need to do those things. I mean, those are like 101 when it comes to empowerment. We need economics and we need political control.
See, that's the thing. For me, that's the answer. Entrepreneurship. Me, that's just the simple, clear cut answer. When I ask somebody, when someone says to me, well, what's the answer? What do you do? Ownership. That's my answer to that question. I haven't wavered. And just because,
But
you know,
yeah,
no, I mean, it's like this. If that's a path that I've been choosing and things have been successful, I'm gonna continue to ride this car until the wheel falls off. Right? You know, people can give me, suggest other options, other ways and stuff, but you got to show me in history where that stuff you're talking about has actually worked. Like I don't want to. Not a knock on the struggle, because that's not what I'm suggesting. What I mean is, if people are coming to me with solutions or proposed solutions, and this is stuff we've been doing in this country for years and years and years, and we're getting the same results, then it's going to be hard for me to adopt that when I'm doing something completely different and I'm getting the results that I want. You understand what I'm saying? So,
I think the thing though is, and this is why I say policy or politics myself has to be part of it, is because even when we talk about ownership, you got to think about the way the system works against you when it comes to certain things. Like, I mean, the biggest one that we could take is like the housing market, the crash. You know what I mean? Like, basically, a lot of Black people were subjected to subprime loans, which left them in a worse position after that crash. And that was more than the white counterpart, where a lot of Black people's wealth that was in those homes are no longer there. So the system, you still got to kind of push yourself into the system a little bit more so you could safeguard yourselves when it comes to certain things like that. You know what I mean? So it's two-part. It's two-part. I agree.
So Anya, talk to me then. Where we starting, man?
Well, yeah. Well, I just wanted to throw in there that when we throw out unity, that's such a big thing to deal with. You know, it's like almost we feel like mentally it's an impossible feat to get to. But I feel like when we focus on the micro things, like the examples that you guys named, those things are more attainable. And another tool that I wanted to throw in specifically was we got to focus on what we gonna do with the spiritual thing, with the whole spirituality, because our people are very spiritual people. Our people are big into church. That is a heavy influence and a heavy power in our community that we cannot ignore. That's it's a lot behind that. And also we have to deal with survival as well in this country, just as a people. I know you guys are using this the example of Europeans earlier. Two things I wanted to tie to them was their economics and their survival is one thing that does unify them, even though they have so many differences. They come together to say, hey, what are we going to do for survival, and how are we going to spend our money together? Because these things equate to our survival and to us holding this power over the world.
The community in Lakewood, that is an example of unification, though, right? You would say that, if everybody in that community is pretty much on the same page, whether it be fraud or not, everybody is on the same page with that. So, I like I like pushing towards like unifying. I like that, but uh, I also like doing my own shit and letting other people see what I'm doing and let them come along if they want to, But so Andy, what do you feel about all this, man? What would be your take on that? Where we starting, man? Where we starting?
I mean, is it conducive? Like maybe this is probably an overreach, but do you remember when Martin Luther King had kind of like a quote, like he felt like he integrated into a burning house? Do you feel like the system in itself is conducive for any kind of African essence or spirituality? Is this conducive to our original ideas from the the first continent? Is it really conducive? Like, okay, yeah, entrepreneurship, but isn't that going to lead to corrupt politicians and a whole bunch of other shit? Like, for example, all right, now we would say that there are more Black people in Washington right now, but why is it still the same? Why is it less? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is our progress just kind of like at a standstill? Like, that's why I'm like, I'm not really, I feel like it's such a simplistic answer sometimes. And I'm not getting on your answer per se, G, but it's more like, yeah, okay, entrepreneurship. Yeah, let's kind of integrate. Let's be part of American society. But American society do covert wars. You do, there's corrupt politicians. There is motherfucking getting like kickbacks and all this other shit. Like, do we really want to be a part of that? Or do we want to rehabilitate, fix?
So
we do that.
Here's the thing. With that, so it, first of all, politics. I never really focused on politics until maybe a year and a half ago. You know, me and DB used to talk all the time. I used to kind of stay out of it just because it just seemed like the same bullshit. You know, all this rhetoric from this side and this side, and oh yeah, you're gonna do this, and then it just seemed like bullshit. And then once you started understanding that if you are going to focus on like the political process and stuff, you want to kind of focus on your communities, the areas where you live, because that's going to directly affect you. So as far as politics is concerned, I'm just getting to the point where I'm speaking about that entrepreneurship side of things. Just it gives you what I think is the control that DB is talking about. There is the way that this country is set up. There is a system. If you work inside of this system, you can go ahead and you can succeed regardless. And I'm gonna say regardless of what a lot of the stuff that people feel like Black people actually go through in this country. Yeah, we go through some shit, but there's some shit out there for us as well. For instance, since I'm on the whole entrepreneurship and doing for self, and I want to speak specifically to Andy. I've said before on the show about in New York City specifically, there are programs. There's I posted. Matter of fact, I was there the other day. I posted it. New York City Small Business Services. This is a city-run agency, and if you want to start your business, say fuck that. If you don't even know what kind of business you want to start, you can still go down there, and they'll start you right there and kind of walk you through the process. I found out just recently, it's kind of quota based. They have to, certify or do a certain amount of goals and stuff that they have to reach, and if they don't do it, it doesn't justify their position. That's one of those things I think is interesting, because when you think it's civil service, a lot of times you get that position, you get vested, your attitude sucks. You can give a fuck about people are coming in that need assistance, but this particular agency, no, they pay attention to you, they work with you. And then I mentioned that it's free.
Say again?
What I said, did I mention that it was free? All of this consulting, all of this stuff that you get from there is free. So here's the thing, fuck the politics, right?
Okay.
Fuck all the politics. I could care less about, and you're right. There's more Black people in Blacks in politics now than it possibly ever was, right? And shit's not changing. So for me, fuck all that. I don't pay attention to that. I want to go ahead and get some things moving here, so I can have that control. Now, I'm good with trying to unify, get people to come on, but at some point, this ship is moving, man. You might have to get in a rowboat to catch up to me, but that's the reason why I focus on entrepreneurship. Don't get it twisted. The politics part of things, that's completely second to me. DB know that we'll go back and forth about this shit when we start talking about will we start versus policy, trying to get policy. Or
I don't know why, because I think both is important. You don't want that be for politics, but yeah, I think
no, but for this very same reason that Andy's skeptical. Because think about it.
But either way, this goes back to why I think we never fully integrated, or why we never got to do anything bigger than what we actually did. is because we take these little small victories, the symbolic ones, and never do anything with it. Like you cannot, if you've never voted in your life, you can't give somebody voting rights and they don't know the voting process. They don't know how to use it. The same thing, like with the example that you're giving, like I don't know how many people know this program. Since you already got that kind of mind state, you see something, you go for it. But how many people are actually taking advantage of that? Like how many people actually even know business to like you said, you might go in there and not know what you're doing, but how many people even have that step to go there and look for these programs in the first place?
Here's the thing. The interesting thing about that is, yeah, my focus is on entrepreneurship. So, I got my eyes and my ears open for opportunities like this. Yes, right? But the Breakfast Club, we all know the Breakfast Club and syndicated over 2 million subscribers on YouTube and, all of that shit, right? They had the commissioner of, I don't even know what he's commissioner of. I'm thinking either way, but this particular city agency falls under his rule. His name is Greg Bishop, Commissioner Greg Bishop from New York City, and he's sitting there and he's talking about everything I'm talking about. Funny thing is, when you go and you click on that video, let's say if you looked it up now, it's probably, just cracked maybe 150,000 views. And it's been out a while ago. But type in Tekashi 6ix9ine, it's about 14 million views. It's 14 million. So when you ask the question about, people knowing about this shit, the Breakfast Club, 2+ million subscribers.
But again, that goes back to the mentality.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's a matter of that we have a fractured mind here. Like it's a lot of fractured minds. It's really, at the end of the day, it goes all the way down to that. So like, you have to kind of change the mindset. Like I'm saying, no, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that if you have people that are more interested in Tekashi 6ix9ine because it's entertaining compared to people that is seeing this commissioner that's giving them information that could empower them more, that shows there's a fracture in the mind state that we never fully took advantage of.
And Dane, this kind of goes back to your point earlier of the importance of Black leadership or the lack thereof for the day. We need that leadership to be pointing people's minds in the direction of that type of information, because people's mind wander into the bullshit.
Okay, so we talking about I'm gonna go back to the Breakfast Club for a minute. So, they know what they're doing, right? The people who, who put up their thumbnails, the people who type their captions, they know what they're doing, right? They know how to, word this shit to get people's attention, right? Greg Bishop's episode, right, was talking about going down to this place that's essentially going to provide services for you that people spend thousands of dollars for, and it's free. Ultimately, once you get into this shit, it's going to give you opportunities to generate income. Who the fuck doesn't want to make money? Who don't want to make money? You understand what I'm saying? So
I'm saying when you get the option, like when you got first of all, okay, so we're talking about money. We're talking about the mentality that's built in America that basically you go work, get a paycheck, you live, compared to this one video. You know what I'm saying? Like the information is always there. Like, even before Greg Bishop went to the Breakfast Club, the information was always there, but what gravitates people more to it? Like, we could talk about the thumbnails, we could talk about all that, but you have Breakfast Club come on 5 days a week? So you have Greg Bishop on there 1 day out of that week, out of that month, out of that year, and you have all these other people that you're interested in because they constantly being fed to you. You had Tekashi 6ix9ine, who I've never heard his music, but I know who he is because it's constantly being fed out there. I hear that more than Greg Bishop, whose name I just heard now at this very moment. You know what I'm saying? So it's a matter of what creates that influence. So I guess that goes back to Ani's point is you need more than just that one Breakfast Club to change the mentality of people. Even if the overall desire is to make money and empower themselves, because they're fed this other hook, which is basically going out to a company and getting a paycheck, that other shit might be overlooked because I'm able to survive off this paycheck now instead of thinking about the future.
Yeah, I didn't mean to suggest that at all, because I wasn't. Not even to say that the Breakfast Club should be your source of conscious material. I'm not even saying that. You know what I'm saying? But what I was just saying that if if the argument is people don't know. I'm saying a
Uh,
platform that 2+ million people have subscribed to, right?
well,
And a lot of
maybe
times
it's
it's
my mistake. Maybe that's my mistake. I'll take your point because I don't want to say that it's not that people don't know. It's that people's mind is not geared that way. If that makes it better, you know what I mean?
and again,
Like we're not teach economics.
and again, that's why I was saying who the hell doesn't want to make money? Because ultimately, that's what this opportunity is—an opportunity for you to not only make money, to create your own. Like I don't know, I don't. That when I say that shit, goosebumps come up my fucking arms. When I say own, when I think about ownership, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know, maybe I'm a different dude, but when I see something that says come down here and we'll help you start your own shit, that normally costs people thousands of dollars, we're gonna do it for absolutely free. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and check this thing out. I'm gonna go ahead and check it out and see what's going on. But we'll go ahead and move past that. Hopefully that was sufficient enough for you, Andy, just to kind of explain how I think about politics versus doing for self and all that other stuff. But what else, man? What else have we going through, man? What else are we going through post integration? That is putting us in a situation where we're not living the way we feel we should or the way we deserve to live. What is it? What other stuff? What other ills? What other things is going on in these communities, man?
Well, did you guys hear about that whole thing? I think that was like last weekend in Chicago. What was it, like 79 people shot and
Yeah,
11 people killed over the weekend?
I did.
So speaking specifically on so-called black on black crime, and it's being at its highest than ever before.
Mm-hmm,
That's another factor that I want to point to that's worse now than ever before.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What y'all feel
I
about
don't know
that?
if that's worse than ever before, to be quite honest. I think it's bad. Don't get me wrong. I think like even with black on black crime is kind of a misnomer because the fact is any person within the community that has crime is going to commit crimes against their own people because
Exactly. I always
your neighborhood is essentially looks like you. You know what I'm saying? But even with that, man, I think when we're talking about why it's so bad, especially in a place like Chicago, where they pretty much are lumping all these people together. So these people that used to be separate before because they lived in one housing project way over there, somebody else lived in another housing project over there. They'd start getting rid of this housing project. Now all those people got to move towards that, and now all these warring factions are starting to come at each other and start killing themselves. You get rid of some of the schooling system over there, which they got rid of mass schools in Chicago within the last year. That all these people got to go to the same school now. You get rid of especially in the worst side of Chicago, they got rid of the hospital. So now all these people gotta travel all the way they got rid of a lot of the resources, which is what's creating a lot of this crime as well. You know what I mean? And they're setting up the situation which creates a lot of this crime as well, which in a lot of inner cities is usually how it happens. You know what I mean? Like they fuck up the communities enough where you kind of lash out to a certain degree, or it becomes a matter again of that idea of survival. Like I'm gonna do what I gotta survive.
So the idea of say black on black crime, it's like bullshit. You saying like
It is. To me, it is. I mean, it's something that they use a lot to say that we're violent. It builds that idea of the black criminal. You know what I mean?
But
They always want to make us up like violent people, and I think
here's
that's
the
part of
thing,
black.
though. Here's the thing, though, Dane. I agree 100% with that, and that's why I labeled it as so-called black on black crime because it's ultimately, again, just the effects of white supremacy, and it's working what white supremacy wants it to work. Especially if white supremacy gives the community the self-hatred, the guns, and the fucked up circumstances. They know what's gonna happen. But what I'm more so dealing with is blacks killing blacks, blacks dying at a high rate at the hands of other blacks. That's something that we still have to deal with as a community. That is now worse than ever before. We understand all the effects and what creates that, but that is a factor that we really need to deal with. We are dying by other black people's hands in our community at very high rates right now than ever before.
I mean, the thing again, why I kind of, and I don't want to just lock in on the word worse. I just want to say that this is an epidemic that's been here forever.
No, but it's worse now than ever before.
But
I mean,
worse like how? Okay.
I'm going specifically off the examples that a lot of my elders have given me from a comparison of what they saw the black community to be, back when they were young, as in comparison to now. These are the reasons why a lot of elders say, "Damn, times are just getting worse. They're really getting worse."
I'm gonna cut you
They
off. I'm
seen the
sorry, because
transition.
I'm not gonna go by that, and not saying that I'm gonna not go by their experiences. The thing is, when I look at numbers, because I can't talk about history beyond me, except through numbers, through everything else. And I say that to say that this is an epidemic that's been around. People's experiences is always going to be different. When somebody asked me a long time ago if life is worse now than when I was younger, when I really thought about it, it couldn't be. When you talk about the type of genocides, the wars, everything that's happened within human society, I cannot say time here is worse. The only thing that changes is your perspective, because you
Okay,
go
but
up
just
from a
like,
certain age,
but
but what the numbers themselves, black crime in 1960 to now, you could say the numbers are different, but also the population is different. So the numbers are going to
okay,
change. They're going to
but just
automatically
like
go
we
up.
can,
But
but
I'm
just
saying
like
that
we
it's
can
bad.
question,
I don't want to say worse because that's hyperbolic. It's hyperbolic to the point where we're not looking at what we need to correct a lot.
okay. But just like we can question one's experience and perspective, we also need to be very careful of these statistics that we get, because we do not control the statistics. We do not know where these statistics come from. We do not know the agenda behind these statistics. So
Right.
I would like to just add, how about we just go from our own experience? What you've seen in your own
If we're
experience.
talking
Hold on,
about
hold on.
worse, how are you going to say worse? No,
Let me
because how are you
finish.
going to say worse?
Finish.
Hold on,
Let
hold
me
on.
finish.
I want to get off of that, because how are we going to say
My
worse
statement.
from
Okay.
your
Let
own
me finish
All
my
right, so
statement.
hold on for a second. Okay, so the
Good.
argument now is uh the us being able to believe the statistics that are presented to us about us. Is that like what we talking about now, the statistics part of the thing? Then you would rather see
I'm not saying go by statistics to just thing. I think honestly, and this is not to anybody, but when I hear those arguments, it becomes an idea of just automatically, because I might not know the statistics, or I don't trust necessarily anybody, which I'm not saying trust any white supremacy thing, but if I look at a few statistics, because I don't just take from one place, I take from everywhere, that to say just diminish this numbers and to say that my experience is over somebody, especially when I haven't lived that long. I've only lived 40 years of
That's
my
why I
life.
gave the
Somebody
experience. That's
before
why I gave
me,
the example of elders who have lived
but
longer
even
than me.
they could have lived 70 years out their life. So, again, and they're taking a lot from when they were younger. So if they're taking from the younger years, I mean, I could say my experience as a young man feels like it was much better than my experience now, or what I think the next generation is going through now. And I think that is, as human beings, that's what we normally do. We think our past is better than it actually was. And we look at the past and say that better actually was. But when you look at the numbers, a lot of that shit was just as fucked up. And the thing is, black on black crime within communities has just been as fucked up. So it's not necessarily saying that they're wrong. It's not necessarily saying that black on black crime is bad. I'm saying that when we talk about worse, to say that we are more fucked up as a generation, it makes it think that first of all, they're kind of by themselves because they're way fucked up. It's kind of the same idea when people say like you are the super predator, like basically that the next generation is way more fucked up than this generation is going to be. We're kind of taking that same idea and putting it on ourselves when we are people that basically have always been in a fucked up situation that we need to get out that fucked up situation. So it's not worse. Like we could talk about and give you a perfect example. If we're going to talk about somebody's experience, somebody that we work with out of Chicago, this was last year or the year before. There was like how people talk about how fucked up Chicago is now and the numbers. And he was like, but when you look back in the 70s, the numbers were even higher than they were actually then last year or the year before. So when we talk about experiences, which is small in itself, because I could talk about a few blocks that I lived on and say blocks now is worse or bad. But when we're talking about America in a whole, you cannot say that.
Yeah, Anya. So for someone who doesn't have these elders, like to give them their perspective about what things were going through their time, what else will they use? If you're saying just their experiences, that I mean, that's people could say that's just a bubble. You know what I'm saying? You living in your bubble, your own personal experiences, stuff that you see. there's a lot more going on outside of our individual selves. So how would you convince someone that things are better or worse if you're not using statistics, some form of statistics?
Okay. What I'll point to is a few examples that weren't existent or as heavily prevalent as they are today. Speaking specifically on the fatherless era, you know what I'm saying, when that hit in the 80s with the whole crack epidemic. The 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s didn't see all of these fatherless homes and the trickle down effects from such, you know, which even fall into so-called black on black crime as well. You know, we can use examples of, since we like to use statistics, the high abortion rates. Our community has not seen women, and I'm not knocking.
I'm sorry, I'm
the
gonna correct you on two things real quick. I'm sorry. I gotta correct you. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry, but all right, go ahead. I'm finished. Let's go for it. Finish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so our community hasn't seen these type of abortion rates that we're seeing today. They're saying, the statistics say that we abort the most babies, that we're aborting babies in the millions. That's what the statistics are saying. But from my own
Statistics
experience,
actually say the abortion rate for Black people have gone down 27.1% since 2000 to 2014.
okay, but here's the thing with statistics. Okay, I'm a man. I'm not going off of what another man is telling me. I'm going to go off of my own statistics, what I come up with, what I've seen. Because again, I don't know this man. I don't know what agenda he's putting on my community. So I can tell you from my experience, I know tons of women who've had 3 to 4 to 5 abortions each. This is running rampant in our community, and we're killing our babies before they even get a chance to come here and possibly even change the dynamics in our community. Another fact.
We're gonna talk. Let's talk about the abortion specifically because Dane, it seemed like you threw out something to refute that.
Yeah, basically the abortion rate for Black people itself have gone down 77% since 2014. Abortion by itself has gone down, especially for Black people in the community. And we're talking about experiences. I have I